Howdy, guys. Welcome to night 22 inside the Big Brother All-Stars house. This is Cliff Notes from outside Big Brother house. Now, before we get started, I just want to send out some thoughts and prayers to the people who have been impacted by the landfall of Hurricane Laura. Houston missed out on it, but the border between Texas and Louisiana has gotten hit hard, Lake Charles especially. So for all those impacted, I'm sending my best wishes and thoughts to you, and we'll see in a couple hours how bad it is. But thoughts and prayers out to you guys. All right, so let's talk about what's going on. Wednesday night, Thursday morning, we've got the eviction later tonight. Not nearly as exciting as last night's overnight feeds with the whole David and Tyler and Davon situation going on. A little more chill tonight, but we will go ahead and cover what did happen in preparation for tonight's I think live episode. Finally, we're getting a live episode. So yeah, we'll talk about that. All right. So first of all, quick conversation now, just for those a refresher. Janelle and Kaiser are on the block. So what's going on? Well, first of all, meeting between Cody and Enzo. Cody is telling Enzo about the whole situation that occurred last night about David telling Davon that Cody and Tyler had mentioned that Davon was trying to flip the votes to keep Nicole Anthony in the house. I talked last night about this a little bit and mentioned that David had kind of thrown Tyler under the bus. Well, he also threw Cody's name under the bus. I missed that. Didn't talk about that, but he threw both of them under the bus. So Cody is telling Enzo about it, and he's saying, look, here's the thing. Danny and Nicole Franzel were the source of that. They came in, they woke me up in the middle of the night, and they're the ones that told me that information about Davon trying to flip the votes. And then I passed it on to David, who unfortunately passed it on to Davon. So that was interesting. Also, another conversation I had, apparently Danny approached Enzo asking him to make Davon a have-not, because Enzo gets to pick. He's finishing up his have-not. So she said, hey, why don't you make Davon a have-not? But then she went and told Davon that, hey, Enzo said he's going to make you a have-not. Enzo later talked to Davon and said, I never said that. No, I never said that. So little bit of disconnect in terms of what's being said and who's saying it. It's making Davon a little bit more paranoid. It's certainly making the guys a lot more suspicious of Danny. We'll talk about that more here in just a second. So Cody and Enzo and Tyler are talking. Cody's telling the others, saying, man, David, he's just super untrustworthy. He's saying things he shouldn't do. You can't depend on the guy at all. But he also mentions again that Davon has become very paranoid. She's worried about this guy's alliance, and now she heard the story, about the have-nots and the everything else. So she's very paranoid. And he says, guys, Danny is spreading game info everywhere. She's trying to stir things up. She's just sending out everything to everyone. So we need to be aware of that. Enzo says that Davon warned him about the same thing. Said Danny is spreading a lot of information. So they're worried about that, and they worry that David, who is working with Davon, that he may be doing the same thing as well. So we're starting to see some cracks in these supposed alliances of people feeling like other people are being a little manipulative. They're trying to bring in relationships. They're trying to throw people under the buses, and we're starting to see things start to fall apart a little bit. Yay, that's what I want to see. That's what makes it exciting, right? Okay, another conversation. Ian and Danny are talking, and not a lot to the conversation, but I did want to point out that Ian asked Danny, says, so what are the chances that the votes are there, that Janelle's going home versus Kaiser? And he says, I'm thinking maybe 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And Danny said, nah, it's 10 out of 10. She is going home. There's no way around it. They haven't necessarily told Janelle that. They're leading her on a little bit, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But he said, nah, she's going home. That's all there is to it. So another conversation, Tyler and Cody are talking, and Tyler, it's important somewhat because Tyler mentions to Cody, says, hey, I talked to Christmas. Christmas wants to put up Bailey and Davon if she wins HOH, which, hey, let her be the HOH, let her be the bad guy, do something like this, and they can just sit back and say, we didn't know about it. So interesting to hear what's maybe going on in Christmas's head, at least what she's telling the guys about it, is to put up Bailey and Davon. Speaking of, Bailey and Davon are talking to each other. Davon is saying that, hey, David told Cody that she was worried about a guy's alliance, which we kind of heard some of that before. But as a result of that, she's now jumping ship. And we're talking about the Slick Six alliance that she has with them. Now, I wasn't real sure if she's wanting to jump ship because she's concerned about this supposed guys alliance, or because she now knows that Cody knows that she's worried about it, and so she's worried about loyalties and such. But she says, I think I'm ready to jump ship on those guys. And Day, during the same conversation, she's still talking about David. She is upset that David called her uninvited. When she was saying, how come you didn't come to me? He said, well, sometimes you're just a little uninviting. She doesn't like that. She says, no one ever called me that. And she asked Bailey, am I uninviting ever? And Bailey says, you can be a little intimidating at times. So, Davon doesn't like hearing that David was ever scared to approach her, which truly I think was part of it. Davon is wondering, should I go tell David what Cody said about him? And we'll talk about what that was right after this. And so Bailey says, well, what kind of reaction do you want from David when you tell him that? And she said, I want his ass to crumble. She wants him scared. She wants him nervous and feeling bad. And so apparently, I think the conversation that she's talking about is she came in and she fact-checked with Tyler and Cody. Last night, David said, let me check with those guys. You fact-check with Janelle, but don't come to those guys because then they won't ever trust me. Well, Davon said, never mind that. She fact-checked anyway. And apparently, Cody told her, said, I didn't say that to David. David came to me with the fears about you potentially flipping the votes and such. And it wasn't me. David just came to me on it, and now he's just trying to cover his tracks. And so Davon kind of wants to tell David that, hey, Cody's saying he didn't say that to you, that you told it to him, and just see how David responds. She hadn't done it yet, but she's hearing different information from different sides. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, another conversation between Memphis, Enzo, Danny, and Cody. Now, this is very interesting. This is kind of gameplay. This isn't necessarily strategy, but something to think about, guys. Memphis tells them that he knows that the jury starts at 7 weeks because he asked the right questions. And I assume that means some kind of discussion with producers before the season started. But he knows it starts at 7 weeks. If that's the case, does that mean that we have 10 jurors? And you don't want to tie on the final vote, do you, with 10 jurors? Which makes me wonder, are we potentially going to the final 3 instead of a final 2? This season supposedly is a little bit shorter than the past seasons that we've had. It's not going to be 99 days. Well, if you have 3 finalists instead of 2, you cut a week out of that final, out of the season length. So maybe we're going to see a final 3 in Big Brother this season. Just the old brain is spinning. We'll see if that happens or not. But I thought that was very interesting. During that same conversation or meeting, Cody says he's tired of babysitting Davon and David based on last night and everything else. He's mad that the whole thing happened. Tyler says, man, they may both be coming after you, Cody, after the way that stuff went down. Tyler better be worried that someone may be coming after him as well, as in Bailey, Davon. But we'll see. But they're a little bit worried now about that. They talk about the fact that Cody mentions he thinks Christmas winning HOH would be good, since she probably does go after Dave, which she has kind of confirmed already that she would probably put Davon and Bailey on the block. So they're happy to let Christmas win this HOH and let her do the dirty work. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting watching the HOH tomorrow night and see who wins it, because it really could affect a lot about who's on the block. There's nothing certain about next week the way this week kind of turned out to be. All right, so we have that. Danny is suggesting to Cody, all right, now this has got to go. Danny says, hey, Cody, do you want to get a little bit risky? She says, what if we both vote to evict Hazer and we blame the votes on Bailey and Davon, just to stir things up and make everyone else think that they kind of are on that side? It gives us an excuse to then go after them. It's sneaky. So she talks about that. Cody's really reluctant. He says, I'm not sure I'm really into that. So we'll see. Now, Danny also does confirm that she's convinced Christmas to put up Bailey and Davon if she wins HOH. So again, we hear that mentioned. Bailey and Davon's name has been coming up for the last 36, 48 hours quite a bit. They aren't in as good a position as I thought they were last week. So again, it's going to be interesting to see who wins this HOH. All right, another conversation. This is between Davon and David. This was an awkward conversation, my friends. It's a very forced conversation. Davon says, hey, I don't think I did anything wrong, but if I did, I'm sorry. I had your back. We don't need a toxic alliance here. We need to be working together. David says, well, I don't think I'm going to be around that much longer, but I'm not going after you, Davon. So they're trying to smooth out, but it just was not very friendly. They're very much uncomfortable speaking to each other right now. So it's just not quite working out for those guys. Another conversation. This is between Janelle and Cody. Everyone kept telling Janelle, you need to go talk to Cody. If you're going to try to get these votes, Cody is a key. You've got to go talk to him. He doesn't like that. He says, I don't want to be the deciding vote, Janelle. That's not what I want to do. He didn't want to be in that position. She ends up saying, look, if you'll vote with me, I'll offer you complete safety. I'm not ever coming after you. At one point, she even offers her wedding band, says, you can take my wedding band, throw it away or something if I lied to you, if I ever betray you. He says, nah, I don't want your wedding band. What am I going to do? Be a creep and throw it in the trash? I'm not doing that. But she offers him complete safety. She says, look, all I want to do is I want to get out the floaters. And just so you know, it's Nicole Anthony who kind of identified y'all's 4-person alliance. It wasn't me. She just brought that information to me. So Janelle's doing a lot of campaigning. Finally, Cody says, okay, and they shake hands. And she's all excited they have a handshake deal on it. But Enzo previously had told Cody to just do what he did. Say she's got your vote. Say, sure, you got my vote, so she'll stop campaigning to you. But that doesn't mean that's truly the case, and we're seeing a lot of that. So another conversation, Bailey and Enzo are talking. They're agreeing that they both like Janelle's pitch to go after people that they can't, such as Nicole Franzel. But they don't think that Cody or Danny or Tyler would do it. They're both very nervous as well about Danny stirring things up. Again, everyone's hearing or realizing that Danny's kind of doing a lot of different people saying a lot of different things. Conversation between Danny and Nicole Franzel. Danny's saying that Davon had said that coming in, she planned to go after Nicole. But she changed her mind after talking to Nicole Franzel, and she thinks she's great and everything else. Well, it's kind of sneaky because she's saying that she's not going to do anymore, but still's got Nicole Franzel trying to get Nicole Franzel, get the seeds planted that maybe Davon views Nicole as a target just to help maybe get Davon on the block and voted out of the house if the situation arises. Another conversation, Memphis and Danny and Nick and Cody are talking. Memphis talked about how hard Janelle's campaigning and how funny it is going to be when she's voted out. Cody told her to wear athletic gear for the HOH just in case she stays. They're all laughing about it. They know it's not going to happen. They want to make it as painful for Janelle as possible tomorrow night and make her think that she's staying and then just blindside her anyway and send her home. Yeah, really? All right, another conversation, Enzo and Kaiser. Enzo's telling Kaiser he's not a target for Enzo. He's in his good graces, says there's other people in the house he doesn't know where they're at, and he wants a parent to win the final competition. A couple more, Danny and Cody are talking. Danny's going to tell Janelle sometime tomorrow that she doesn't have the vote. She's not going to wait to the very last second, let Janelle get blindsided. So thank you, Danny, for that. So end of Had Nots. They had a big feast, celebrated all of that. Okay. Cody and Christmas having a meeting. Christmas is saying that David wanted to make sure that they were still good. He asked Christmas, he said, hey, don't put me up if you win HOH. And she says, I'm sure we can work something out. In other words, she wants a deal, some commitments from David. But David didn't want to promise any kind of deal. He just says, just don't. Yeah. You got a little give and take there, David, but he didn't want to make a deal. When she asked him who he would put up, he said Janelle. Well, I'm not real sure I understand that conversation. Janelle's probably going to go home, but whatever. Yeah, so she has that. Cody is tells about David, or just spreading the word more about David, telling Davon about the vote flip stuff, and he's telling Christmas that he's saying the same thing. He said, here's the deal, Christmas. This whole thing blew up last night because of what David told Davon, but David came to me. I didn't come to Davon. So he's telling her the same story that he told Davon. It wasn't him. But again, he says you can't trust David anymore. They're all worried that if Bailey or Davon wins the HOH, two of their group could go up. That's probably a worst case situation. Hazar going, then Nicole Franzel goes on the block and such, most likely. But if Bailey or Davon goes up, it could be two of them, which would not be good. And then a final bit of conversation, Ian and Christmas are talking. Ian says, hey, if it comes down to the two of us in HOH Christmas, I'm perfectly happy to throw it to you. I know you'll protect me. And Christmas is excited, says, I'll take it. I'll absolutely take it. All right, guys, we got to shut down. SKD 143, y'all have a great evening. Cheers, guys.